Hello and welcome to our first update for the Christmas updates on games that weren't. And today what we released is a very early prototype of an abandoned Argonaut game called Cult. So this is a video where we're going to be showing you the prototype which Martin Piper has very kindly dug out for us. And you can read more details about the game and also download the prototype for yourself on the Games That Weren't website. So the link will be in the description. That will take you straight there. So, about a couple of months ago, Martin very kindly dug out the remaining archive of his work. So, this was something that Martin very briefly worked on shortly after working on Alien Odyssey. So, when that fell through for the Sega Saturn, he was assigned to another project where he was going to be showcasing the, at the time, brand new 3DFX Voodoo 1 graphics card, which was one of the first real mainstream graphics accelerators for the PC. And I mean, seeing Quake rendering in 3DFX for the first time was absolutely amazing back in the day. But it was also kind of using it to showcase Argonaut's BRender engine as well, and showing how they could get the two working together and looking quite nice. So Colt itself didn't get very far at all. It's essentially going to be a third-person arcade shooter with some kind of a zombie twist, and it wasn't really any story. And working with Martin were a couple of artists. So Vanessa Pouliard, which hopefully I've got the surname pronounced correctly, and apologise if I haven't, and also Owen Jenkins. And together they put together a couple of scenes, including like a outside world area that was set within a desert with a diner kind of central feature within the middle. And there was some kind of underground parts under the diner, which probably would maybe be the start of where the zombies were appearing from. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it didn't get very far at all. They essentially we only had this one kind of test level done and some character animations. But one of the main things you had was the main character called Nathan that was fully controllable, and you could sort of run around and interact, fire some weapons and that kind of thing. But it was cancelled mid 1997 for reasons that can't yet be recalled. Anyway, so Martin passed on the prototype to us, but unfortunately it was in quite a broken state, so there was a lot of assets that were missing, and also it had to run within Windows 95. I couldn't get it to run any other way, not even with the Glide replacement drivers. So the thing with this prototype is that it's specifically looking for the original Voodoo 1 drivers and a specific version of BRender. So this kind of took a lot of trial and error, going back and looking at other games from around that time that used BRender and trying to find the exact same engine. So in the end we settled on BRender, I think it was 1.3, and that seemed to work and helped us get a little bit more progress. But when you ran the executables, it was trying to force itself to run in direct draw mode, and it didn't seem to be very happy at all. It kept crashing out, even on this Windows 95 build. So after a bit more poking around, I figured out that there was a way you could actually force it into its 3DFX modes, which I'm not sure if that's something that Martin did originally. So if I open up this batch file here, which I've included, you can see some flags that you can set, and that will tell it to actually run in its 3DFX mode. So this Windows environment has been set up in PCEM, and there's a really good tutorial that I've included a link to on the page, which tells you how to set up your own Windows 95 environment with a Voodoo 1 graphics drivers as well, which could be quite useful if you want to play some old stuff. But this was really useful for me, so this gave me a perfect environment to start setting this up. But the only issue is that I didn't quite have the right glide files. So in the end I found this glide.dll, and that was taken from the classic pod racing game that was done by Ubisoft, which was another one I used to play back in the day. And just dropping that in combination with the batch file got everything working. But then the next challenge was then trying to get the actual thing to stop crashing. So one of the things it was complaining about was all of the assets that were missing, sadly. So although we have like a map file that contains the diner, we're missing all of the texture graphics, and these were kind of referenced as the prototype booted up, and you'll see that now. Actually, let's just give it a quick run. So it's not going to error now. There's the old classic 3DFX logo. In the background we're loading a bunch of entities, and they've got these particular paths which we had to fix first of all to C drive, because they were referring to a P drive, possibly a network share that used to exist and no longer did, and folders with assets that unfortunately were not part of this archive. So what we did was we opened up the executable, we changed the paths first of all to C drive, and then the actual textures that were missing, we set up the same exact folder paths and then just replicated some of the assets that we did have in TGA format and just renamed them just to try and get something up and running. And this is what we ended up with. And unfortunately, we can't see the main protagonist from the third person view at all. And I'm not sure if this is because there's something else that we need to do to switch that on. But we can see there's these kind of two spheres that as we rotate around using the cursor keys, we can also move around, and we can, there's a bit of jumping as well. And there's another one in the distance there, but this is all we're managing to get rendering. And originally it was looking for a 3D, an actual world with a different file name. So what we've done is taken the Diner 3ds file and loaded that in instead, and that seems to work okay. There's another world file, a much larger file, which I'll show you in a moment, which seems to be corrupted, and when we try and load that in as one of the files, then it kind of crashes out, unfortunately. So this is about as far as we've got for now, and the guns that you can see repeated should be other types of icons, and when you look at the screenshots, you'll see what they should be. So it might be possible from the screenshots to start restoring some of those assets to kind of get it looking like it did or how it should have done, but we're still hopeful that maybe we can get hold of the artists and see if they possibly may still have anything in their archives that could help get this up and running. So yeah, there's not much to do at this stage in the prototype, but in the future it could be opened up and we could be able to see more of it up and running. So it's there if you want to download it for yourself and to have a go. If you manage to get any further than we have so far, please do get in touch and we'll update the page with a credit to yourself. Just for now though, just to show you some of the things that you've got. So we've noticed that if you press space, there's a little gun effect. Martin suggested that there might be other keys for other weapons using the number keys, but this didn't seem to do anything. And there's also additionally an editor mode as well. So if you press E on the keyboard, Martin had built this editing mode so you can actually move around the world, or well, what we're able to show anyway. So as you can see, it's not really a world as such. But as we right click, we have like a context menu. If we go to info, we can see that this was last written back on the 14th of July 1997, so that's likely when it would have been cancelled. And there's a couple of things we can do here. So we can create a new level apparently, and location. We've got something called a bunch of spiders. So if I click that, then starts to try and load a bunch of models that unfortunately were also missing. If I exit edit mode, so let's exit the game. I can see a bunch of assets spinning around there. They should be spiders, I'm guessing. But they're not rendering for some reason, or they're just rendering as a sphere. So I'm wondering if we are missing something in one of the flags, I'm not sure. But you can see how the spiders look. They're essentially kind of very stick thing, little vectors that are kind of moving around. One of the screenshots show you how they look. So other things in the editor mode, a lot of this is quite unstable unfortunately, so if you try and run some of the options it will crash. I've tried to load another level and it's not particularly happy when I try and do that. No, it's not letting me do that at all. There's also a PSX simulation which doesn't seem to do anything at the moment, but again this could be down to the fact that we're not seeing the game properly rendered. I'm guessing that might drop the amount of polys and possibly the texture quality, I'm not sure. So there you have it. That is the prototype. So that's the first one. And let's just come out and pause that a second. Okay, so as well as that prototype, there were a couple of other executables in there as well. So there was also a debug release under the debug directory. So we made a fixed version of that as well. So just to note that there are other batch files that were created for like direct 3D and direct draw modes, and these don't seem to work unfortunately. So only the 3dfx ones seem to do anything at all. So running the debug one, this seems to crash quite early on. So it tries to initialize everything, and then if I sort of break out, we can see what the error message was behind the scenes. So there's like an assertion coming up. I don't know if there's much I can do to kind of fix that apart from trying to recompile everything. So if anyone is able to kind of get past this and get any further, then please please let us know. Let's close that quickly. And then we've also got like a release version which does manage to run. We can see briefly there was the robot demo on the window as well, so that suggests that they started off with a robot demo source code as a starting point to kind of get this going. So here the game goes straight into the edit mode and there's nothing at all in here, and we've got a slightly more cut down version of the menu. So let's go into here. We can see there's a lot less options. By the way, when you try and do a like new level, location or animation, some of these make it crash or they just don't seem to do anything at all at the moment. I think they seem to be okay. They don't seem to be crashing it. Lights and animations. Oh, okay. Light edit mode, so there's not really any options there. I don't know if there might be some other keys that we can press to start in certain lights. PSX emulation again doesn't do anything, so let's exit to the game. So one of the things, if I try and break out of this, I can get back to the menu which you have on the outer window. So here I can actually start opening up map files, but unfortunately that's not doing anything. Some of these will crash the game, so if I try and change some of these, they don't seem to do anything, or they make it crash. If I do about, it's going to be talking about toggling the windowed or full screen mode. That don't seem to work, unfortunately, for me. So if I go to open, there's a couple of there's a diner file that came through. This particular file here is pretty much the desert world with the diner kind of placed in the middle. So if I try and run that, I need to kind of go back to the display mode to make it run full screen. Doesn't seem to have done anything or loaded anything in for some reason. Let's come back out. Okay. When I try and load the diner for this one, it comes up with a rendering error, unfortunately, and then it crashes with an invalid page fault. So we were getting this particular error quite a lot when we were trying to run it in direct draw mode originally, and that's why we had to kind of get that going. But there you go. On the that's the actual prototypes that we've managed to kind of try and get something running. Hopefully in the future we'll find a way of actually getting more to show. Hopefully when more assets turn up. If you manage to find any interesting discoveries, please do get in touch with us just via the website, and we'll continue to update the page with anything that's found. So the 3DS files we can actually load up in something else, and we're going to take a look at those now. So one of the assets that we did manage to recover in full was of Nathan, so the main protagonist within the game. And we're viewing this within 3dviewer.net. So we're able to kind of import the 3DS file, and the texture files thankfully were all present, so we're able to kind of get them fully rendering again as you would have looked back in the day and within the game itself. So this is who we'd like to try and get up and running back in that prototype once again and get him moving around. We can see here that he's carrying a gun. He's also got a sword on his back, or a dagger, and then an axe as well, which I assume they may have been something that you could choose and select within the prototype. We're not 100% sure, as we can only fire the gun. So what we've done is we've kind of imported this and then added all the textures and then exported that as a GLB, so then you can load that into a 3D package if you want to kind of take a look for yourself, and you can download that from the main website. So next up we switched to Blender to take a look at one of the map files that was within the actual archive, and this is the most complete map that we have. Unfortunately, all of the textures are currently missing for it, so we're not able to kind of show you it in a proper full rendered way. I mean, if I try and change the view to like a material, or even texture view, kind of tries to render with solid block colors. Kind of gives you a rough indication. So we have this dome on the outside, which is the kind of like atmosphere for the game. So this would have been the sky. Let's just take this out actually. Get rid of that, be a bit easier to see. Let's change the view back. Apologies, it's been a long time since I've used Blender. Okay, so if we go back to texture mode, you can kind of get a fairly good indication of how it would have looked. And you can see there's the car outside, which you can see properly rendered in the screenshots on the website. You can see the sign outside of the diner, and these objects here are most likely going to be cactuses or something. Okay, let's change it back to wireframe mode. So with the wireframe mode, we can actually see a bit more of the map. Let's take it over to the sign so we can get a bit closer to the diner itself. So there's the sign for outside. We can see a little bit inside the diner. You can see there's table and chairs in there. And there's some salt and pepper sets. Let's see if I can click on one of those and go a bit further in. There's a table and chairs in there you can just about make out. And salt and pepper sets and the little leaflets with the menus. And then quite interesting over here is like a little underground basement. So there must have been a door at the top at the end of the actual diner, which takes you down into some kind of storage area. I don't know if there would have been any zombies down here potentially. Seems to be something under the floor. So I don't know, maybe if that would lead to the caves, I'm guessing. Yeah, there's something on the floor there. So in some of the screenshots, you'll notice that there's like an underground cave section, and sadly, that map's missing. That's probably what was trying to be loaded into the demo build. And this particular level doesn't seem to load in at all with the prototypes at the moment. There seems to be some kind of corruption that we weren't able to get past. But potentially this bit may have opened up, and this might have been where the zombies had come out, or where you went into to try and then destroy those zombies. I'm not entirely sure. Martin might, based on this video, might give a bit more feedback or recollection. It was quite a long time ago, unfortunately, so the memories are a little bit faded, mainly because of how long this was worked on, which was a very short amount of time. So over on the other side as well, we have the car. Which has got some quite nice detail on it, and it's just a shame really that the actual textures are missing, so we could actually properly render this and be able to kind of move around it. But it's good that we have this at the very least, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to kind of recover more of those assets to kind of bring these back to life, and maybe even get hold of that underground cave level as well, because that could be key to actually getting that prototype fully running and maybe be able to properly play it in some shape or form. But we hope you've enjoyed this anyway, and hope you have fun sort of exploring the remains and the assets that have been found. And it's a huge thank you to Martin Piper for allowing us to share all of this and to add it onto the website, and we really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to kind of follow us and subscribe to us, and also check out our website for more unreleased games, and we'll have more coming up very soon, especially in our next Christmas update that will be following tomorrow. So see you then, and speak to you soon.